Hello and welcome to Conversations with Paddy the Panda. I'm Paddy the Panda, and this is my gracious guest this week. Not the real Tracy Delaney from TikTok. Many people will know that. This is just going to be a general conversation. I have a different guest on every single week, and I talk about whatever comes to mind. Tracy, hello, and thank you very much for being here. And I guess let the people know a little bit about yourself.
Well, like Paddy, I am from Ireland, but I live in America. I have dual citizenship. I am Irish, and I also have my American citizenship. So, I joined TikTok probably, I want to say August of last year, primarily to talk about politics, but social issues, everything, anything in between. So.
Yeah, so most of your content was political for a long time because of the election and whatnot. And like myself, I'm very interested in that. And, because I lived in the US as well, I had a bit of a experience in it. So we started following each other maybe, 6 months ago, I think, or something like that.
I got, Sarah Cooper. Everybody knows Sarah Cooper.
Yeah.
It was the reason that I joined TikTok. I was like, oh, because I thought it was like a children's dancing app or something. And then I saw, you could do politics. And I thought, there's voters who are voting for the first time now who are on TikTok. And I could make political satire and whatever. So you were probably one of the first people I followed because I really couldn't, I don't follow an awful lot of people with that account. I do have a private account as well, but with that account, I want a select few. And I think, within the first week, I was like, this fella knows what he's talking about. He's
good. Yeah. Well, thanks very much. Appreciate that. And don't worry.
Somebody else.
we all have a lurker account. Don't worry. We all have that lurker account where we can just be, because when you took off there recently again, so you have quite a big following now. I think just circa 90,000 now at the moment. So when you have that kind of following, the app changes for you. You're no longer able to comment as much or interact with people in the comments. It's more of I'm a content creator and I'm trying to manage then the notifications and stuff like that without pissing people off. So how are you handling that?
Honestly, the last big video, I've had a few videos blow up, but the last one that really blew up was I just sort of just let it do its thing for a week and just avoided. I didn't look at comments. I didn't look at anything. I had a friend who had COVID and she was in isolation and I gave her my password and I said, listen, delete any horrible comments, block any trolls. Cause she's like, no problem. I have all the time in the world. I don't want to hear about them or see about, you see anyone calling somebody a name, so she did that for me, God love her. And I just stayed away from it, but it's definitely, it takes some getting used to. And you certainly start getting attacked more. You're with the good comes the bad. It's suddenly you've got all these followers, but suddenly you've got all these people who just think they can say anything to you. Thankfully, I have tough skin. I grew up with 4 older brothers. Nothing, but it was okay. So
I found that I had to just look at mentions only for a while, and then slowly but surely kind of get into comments, and you kind of start recognizing those followers who are always following you and comment all the time. And
that's what I was going to say. Yeah,
you have a bit of loyalty to them, and you make sure that you say thanks to them.
Right to them. Yeah, that's exactly what I've been doing. All right, if I just see, and there's a lot of troll accounts on there too. I didn't realize until probably the last 2 weeks that there's just a lot of empty accounts, specifically set up just to troll people and to say whatever they can behind and it's so cowardly. I don't even have the time to reply to that. Stand behind what you're saying or don't say it at all. It's just.
So you have controversial content, like you, in terms of there are lots of sensitive people out there, and they find it controversial. And my own content as well gets taken down a lot. I was almost permanently banned, and I don't really consider my content to be incredibly insensitive. But
I don't either, I suppose.
Are you getting lots of your stuff taken down? Is it frustrating?
I've never had anything taken down. Oh, well, actually, that's not true. I did have, but I did have something taken down, but I'm pretty sure it was my own fault.
Okay.
That was just me trying to navigate how to use TikTok. I put something up. I didn't like how it looked, so I immediately deleted it, then put it up again. I figured that the algorithm was like, something's wrong here, and they took it down, and they kept taking it down. So I didn't even bother trying to put it back up again. But not in the way that you're talking about. Nobody's tried to censor me so far. I don't think I'm big enough for,
Well, you're big. You're plenty big with that account. But I think when you tackle the religion as well, people really kind of lose much. But we'll get there. We'll get to the religion anyway in a second, because I want to play that TikTok that you have. But first, just give us a bit of background about yourself. Where, like, you're from Ireland, but what were you doing here prior to moving to the US? When did you move to the US? Was it an economic decision, or was it, the American dream, etc.?
Actually, I completely ended up here by accident. Like I mentioned, I have 4 older brothers, and my eldest brother lives here. And he had just bought a house, and I was playing in bands around Ireland, actually, and singing, and I just finished college, and he said, why don't you come over for the summer here? And so that was it. I was literally only just supposed to come over here and visit. And I visited a lot of places, but there was something about the atmosphere here that I really liked. Just, I'm in Boston, so it's just the atmosphere here is very open-minded. It's very laid back, very laid back. So
I'd agree.
And I just really liked it. And it was sort of, there was no decision to stay, really. It was just like, here we are. So it was, but it was a big change. You're saying, about me, where I grew up and that kind of thing. Like, I grew up on a farm in the middle of nowhere. We're farmers. And we, very, very religious, very frugal, no money, or it was all just about 6 children, typical big Irish Catholic family, and it was just about feeding us and keeping us alive and getting us to school and getting us an education. And then after that, sort of like, you're on your own. So it was just, I want to say a typical Irish upbringing, but I talk to other people and they haven't had that upbringing, so I don't know.
Well, certainly what you're saying is typical. I mean, it resonates with myself. I'm one of 9 kids, raised Catholics as well, frugal, always broke, always
children, like, seriously, what do they expect?
Just trying to feed the family, and the focus was very much like, just do your best in school, keep the head down, come home, help out, around the house or the farm in your case. Go to mass the odd time, and that was it. But you went to college then. What did you study in college?
Oh my gosh, psychology, theology, history, and English.
Right.
So
an arts degree essentially, and then you majored in, what did you major in?
Theology and history, but they're all very interconnected. I mean, people kind of, when you say them off like that, but like, you kind of need one to understand the other. Psychology to understand theology, history to understand psychology and theology, and English. I just love English. So
it's funny because I'm finishing up my BA in psychology right now, but in first year I started off with theology, history, psychology, philosophy, and English, the big 5 as well. So, and I dropped a couple of those.
Friends.
Yeah, we have a lot in common. It's hilarious. But you're there, the interdisciplinary of it, the humanities are very important. And what I found was I learned an awful lot about myself in the studies, But you decided, right, to up sticks, head over to Boston, and you never decided to stay, but you just found yourself still living there a few years later.
Like many Irish people.
Oops.
Paddy, nobody questioned. And this is where I learned all about racism and white privilege. Nobody wants questioned. You know, it was just sort of like, yeah, it's just a different story. Like I overstayed my visa. So technically I was an undocumented immigrant for a while.
Yeah,
and I'll say that to people and they'll be like, oh, but you weren't really illegal. I'm like, well, I was, you know, that's what it is. You know, people think of illegal as jumping over the border or climbing the wall, but most of us flew in, you know. I'm not illegal now, I'm saying that on the record, but you know,
the vast majority of immigrants who overstay their visas, etc., they all fly in. They don't come from the southern border.
The wall's not going to stop anyone.
So have you noticed then in the last week, let's say since Donald Trump's speech at CPAC, where he spent like 45 minutes attacking brown people, essentially, who are coming in from the border. And again, all of a sudden, the border wall, it doesn't exist. It was great 2 weeks ago, but now it's terrible. Yeah. And they're rapists again, and they're mass murderers, etc. And even Greg Abbott reopened Texas and got rid of the mask mandate. And the following day was like, well, it's these immigrants coming in with COVID and spreading it around. So, like, how do you feel about that? Do you get incredibly pissed off, or is it's down there, so it'll be okay kind of thing?
No, that's the thing about America. You do forget that it's so big sometimes that, you know, but you still feel like what happens in Texas happens in America. It's still happening here. And it does really piss me off because it's so clearly blatant racism hidden behind, you know, this need for immigration reform and immigration policy or whatever. But it's not, because I've literally had people say to my face, oh, well, you're the right kind of immigrant, or, you know, we don't mind the Irish, or, you know, it's like, why? You know, what does that even mean? Like, and it's just, it's so very, they're not even hiding it, you know, it's like, it's so much in your face. That, I mean, there was a period where I was between visas and I was in an airport with a friend of mine who's
between visas, folks. Yeah, it's where I was illegally staying in the USA.
Exactly. Yeah. And I was with a friend, and his parents are originally from India, so he's got, you know, the darker skin and all that, but he was born and raised in New Jersey. Yeah, and he got stopped. He's a Jersey boy, and it was just like, there was no, I've just seen it firsthand so much now. I didn't really understand race relations in regards to America until I lived here. I used to watch, you know, you'd watch TV growing up, and you tell us, they're all grand over there. They all get along great, or, you know. But then you get over here and you realize it's not like that at all. It's just, even when it's not spoken about, it's underlying everything, really.
You know, I think one of the issues there is, like, we grew up in Ireland, you know, around the same time, and we're both from Leinster, you know, so we're around the same area, and I didn't see my first person of color until I was maybe 12 or 13, maybe, and that was because there was a direct provision center opened up in my town, and I'd never seen one in real life before.
I know, yeah.
There's no diversity, you know, there's only about 17% diversity here in Ireland. So then, like, when I landed in Boston, you know, first of all, I thought, okay, I'm going to get off the plane, and everybody's going, jeez, there's more Irish here, diddly-eye-dee-die. His name is Paddy, he's from Ireland, jeez, he'll get on great, but most people are like, yeah, so what, you're Irish, we're all Irish, grand, yeah, let's get on with it.
I was like, I'm going to be exotic over here, and another one.
Exactly that. But I think we're blind to it, very much blind to what actual racism actually is, like, and discrimination and prejudice and white privilege, you know, to a certain extent, and gender privilege as well, you know, when it comes down to, from my point of view. So it was eye-opening then when you got there and you were like, okay, there's, you know, the Hispanic community are treated as second-class citizens. The Black community are even worse again in some instances.
And people say it to you because of how you look. They'll say it to you, no problem, like, oh, you know, they're like this or they're like that. And it's so, they don't realize how weird and how strange and just how disgusting that is, sort of like, but you're not used to that. Like I said, my discipline of what America was on American TV shows. Like, when everyone was beautiful, they all drove their BMWs to high school, you know, it was just like, and everybody gets along, you know, and then you get over here and you're like, oh, okay, everybody doesn't get along.
I think you're talking about Beverly Hills 90210 or something there, yeah, probably something like that. Like, but so one of my biggest pet peeves, and just related to that, is when Irish Americans or Americans who have Irish descent or ancestry claim this whole the Irish were slaves, you know, that myth. And it's a myth, you know. And you know, you're a historian, I'm a historian as well, you know. I've read many books
with that lady. It got reported.
Yeah, it got a bit crazy. But like, even her, she was feeding into that, saying that half the Irish people were put on a slave boat to Barbados, and that's just not true. So it's one of my biggest pet peeves. And when you challenge them, they really don't know anything at all. So you must be really frustrated hearing that kind of rhetoric.
Honestly, I've had the indentured servitude versus slave chat with so many people. I had actually made a reply video to that lady as well. I think a lot of us did, but I think after your video, she took down her video or something. I don't know. So it stayed in the drafts. It never got posted. But I know our other friend Queeveen, he also made a reply to it too. A lot of Irish had.
It would have helped me actually if you had posted, because it would have taken the heat off me, because I got banned for a week after posting that. So yeah. But
there is this. I don't like this feeling of like, we faced oppression, therefore you don't get to complain about your oppression. You know what I mean? It's like, first there were different kinds of oppression. Was it bad for the Irish? Absolutely. Nobody's saying we didn't have a horrible time, you know, at the hands of the English, at the hands of many people, whatever. But like, to use that as a, you don't get to complain about what you went through, I don't get that, because it should actually bring us more together than anything, and say like, yeah, we were oppressed too, not in the same way you were, you know, but you know, that makes me support people more who have faced oppression.
I always use the phrase, like, the Irish people don't compare oppressions, we unite against oppressors. You know, and that's, you know, we have a history of that, like with the indigenous peoples, you know, for the most part, with people in Mexico, you know, Indian regiments, you know, we've, you know, even with in terms of Catholicism going to Africa, etc., we always try to, you know, we're always on the side of the oppressed. Even Palestine, you know, for example, you know, Ireland has banned all Israeli goods from Ireland in solidarity with Palestine. So yeah, it's really quite frustrating. And the problem is they're learning these second-hand and third-hand accounts of things without having any backup. And of course, all of them are related to Brian Boru. Every single one of them has a castle in Ireland. And I get frustrated because I'm like, it's okay to be American, by the way. It's okay to be American.
I know.
It's okay to be proud of the past.
So much, you know, when I got over here, I'd get into a cab or something and they'd be like, oh, I'm American too. And I'd be like, wow, you lost your accent fast. Whereabouts are you from? And they're like, well, you know, my great-great-great-grandfather's aunt's dog was from County Cork. And you're just like, I thought you were from Ireland. So yeah, I mean, it's great to be proud of what you are. But also I noticed, and this, you know, is a blanket statement and doesn't apply to everybody, but a lot of the Irish Americans are quite racist. And quite prejudiced, and that's been an eye opener too.
So when the Irish landed in, you know, in New York and, you know, on the East Coast, you know, even then it was a dog-eat-dog world. So you had to fight for everything you have, and it creates that mentality. Okay, if I don't protect this at all costs, somebody's going to take it away from me. And that's then bred into people over generation after generation. So it's not really Irish about it.
In a lot of ways, it's always like the people who are oppressed, they should be banding together to fight the oppressor. But instead, you know, it's just, it reminds me of the political situation here too. It's like the people who have the least are, you know, backing Donald Trump, and it's just fighting against their own, you know, best interests. It's sort of throughout human history, it's been that story, hasn't it? It's just
America seems to be very greedy, you know, it seems to be, but that's about education, and they're indoctrinated from a very early age that America is the greatest country in the world, and that you have to become a millionaire, or you're not successful. And if you don't become a millionaire, you're
Everyone
lazy.
thinks they will become a millionaire. That's the thing, and that's why they're all okay with, they don't want to tax the rich, because in everyone's head, everyone thinks, well, that'll be me someday. That'll be me. I'll be the billionaire. But the logistical, my cat's playing with the wire here. The logistical fact of it is most people won't be. So it's just.
So I want to talk then about you had a video go viral. It's safe to say that it went viral, and I think you had a follow-up video that pretty much went viral then as well. Not as it only got a mere 1.1 million or something like that, but that's all. But what I'll do is I'll play the video first, and then you can we can talk through it then after it, if I can. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. I think it's...
My religion says that being gay, bi, trans, lesbian is a sin.
Your religion also says that having sex during your period is a sin. How come you ignore that? Your religion also says that eating bacon is a sin. How come you ignore that? Your religion also says eating lobster is a sin. Cutting the sides of your hair is a sin. Wearing clothes made out of mixed fabrics is a sin. Getting a tattoo is a sin. A man trimming the edges of his beard is a sin. It says a woman is not to hold any position of authority and is to be quiet. That if a woman is not a virgin on her wedding night, she is to be stoned to death. And that planting 2 different kinds of seeds in the same field is a sin. But that's too hard for you, so you've decided that God didn't mean any of that. He only meant the being gay part. Listen, if you're going to spread hatred towards others by quoting the Bible at them, make sure that you first follow the entire thing, or shut the entire fuck up.
My religion...
I like that. Shut the entire fuck up. That was brilliant.
That's the thing. We're used to swearing, right? So I often would swear like that without thinking that might really offend somebody. And I think that was another thing that really, it was like swearing at this person. But like we say F all the time. I don't know if I can say it on your podcast, but
you can say cunt, you can say fuck, you can say whatever you like, and because I just did, so it's absolutely fine.
It's not that big a deal to me to say, shut the entire fuck up.
So we grew up in Catholic Ireland, and like we grew up in the 80s and the 90s, and this was at the end of the 90s when all the scandals broke, and we finally became aware of just how toxic Catholicism in particular, not Christianity, but Catholicism in Ireland was, but with both the priests and the nuns, because the last Magdalene laundry closed in 96, and the Ryan Report was, I think, 2001. So we understand how toxic that was, and the church had started to die once we finished secondary school, going to college. So then you moved to the US. And is it safe to say it's a different type of toxic, the religious scene over there?
For example, when I responded to that video, I didn't know what denomination of Christianity, my cat again, sorry.
Yeah, no
of Christianity this girl followed. So she did reply and say that, she didn't say what her religion was, but I'm going to guess maybe evangelical or something.
Yeah.
She said, so then I made a video with all New Testament verses. Again, not to but just to show that we can all pick and choose if we want to, sort of, But yeah, there's very much a religion used as, to disguise hate almost, just they'll pick this part and say, well, it means this, and another part and say, oh, it means this. And it's just very... And it's more political than anything else. It's like religion, Christianity is a political party in a lot of ways. My best friend over here is actually Catholic. She's not even from Ireland, and I made best friends with a Catholic. But she and I get on so well because we grew up with that same sort of understanding of things. But it does seem like a more intense, a more money-driven, a more power-driven Christianity in America. To me, as an outsider, it's just crazy. And to denounce facets of it in any way is to denounce the entire religion in there.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh, why do you hate Christians? I'm like, my mother's a Christian, my father's a Christian, my best friend. Like, how do I hate Christians by calling out your, bigotry and hypocrisy?
Yeah,
that's just stupid.
Like we grew up with the Catholic guilt, and that was because the Catholic Church in Ireland was very controlling, especially when it came to our sexuality, and any kind of deviant behavior, and when they were up to no good themselves. But in the US, it's certainly used as a weapon against you. So I always say politicians, when they're quoting the Bible, they're about to use it against you, and they act very unchristian, when they're proclaiming to be Christians. But they're a very powerful scenario. And do you think it's because money? The churches in the USA are not taxed; they're money-making operations, and they control a lot of power. They're as powerful, if not more powerful, than the gun lobby and others.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you look at the Joel Osteens, they've got these mansions, private jets. God commands you to give me money for my next private jet. God commands you to give me money for my mega church. It's just, my friend who I said is really Catholic, she actually texted me last night upset about something. And she said, it really annoys me because she is still very, very Christian and practicing. And she said, that the historical Jesus was this frugal, love one another, kind of a person. And she's like, that's not what Christianity is in America. It's this kind of like, it's power and money, the opposite of what, So it's just, it's driven by greed, absolute greed.
I would have to agree. Now, at the same time, people are very, faithful to Christ and to God and to the religion, and we're not even remotely suggesting anything negative about that. We're talking about that kind of corporate element of religion rather than the, faith, your relationship with a God of your choosing. So we're not talking about that. We're talking about that corporate side of things, and that's the side that's most dangerous. And
if anybody ever tried to like ban people's religion, or I'd be the first person to stand up and say, you can't tell somebody they can't be Christian or they can't be Jewish or they can't be Muslim. Like, we have to defend people's rights to believe in whatever they want to believe. It's that passing, it's the separation of church and state, basically. Once you start passing that thing between what I believe and now, it's fine to say, I can't do this because my religion says I can't do this. It's not okay to say, you can't do this because my religion says you know. That's the thing with me. It's like, your religion is your personal thing. And I will always protect anyone's right to have that. But it's when you start forcing it on other people and trying to pass laws based on it, or, push it onto everybody in school or that kind of a thing. That's,
I agree. And
religion is freedom of everyone's religion, basically. You've got to respect everyone.
The concept of separation of church and state is lost in the US. And, the Republicans in particular, and Donald Trump many times talk about the freedom of religion. They're not giving us our freedom of religion, but it's only freedom of, our religion.
Exactly.
And they'll persecute everybody else, and they'll pretend to be the champion of all religions, and yet they'll only focus on their Christ and their God. And it's ironic then that they're so Christian and yet they're so anti. And I don't think most Americans understand what socialism is, or communism or fascism. They don't understand what any of those actually really mean. But the reality was, their Lord and Savior Jesus Christ was absolutely a socialist.
Absolutely.
If he existed, and I'm an atheist, but in how he's described, he was absolutely a socialist.
Yeah. That's why I did a few Republican Jesus videos as well, and I've been asked to do a few more. And it was kind of like, the gist of that video was, well, one of them anyway that did really well was, a leper comes up to Jesus and asks, to be cured, and Jesus says, like, no, go get a job or something like that. But that's the whole idea of it. He was like, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Whereas Jesus would have been giving healthcare, giving love, giving all his goods away. And it's just, how can you call yourself Christian and then do nothing like what Christ would have done? It's
or like Ted Cruz versus AOC. You know, Ted Cruz is a Christian and talks about God all of the time, and when his people needed help, he went to Cancun. AOC, when she heard about that, raised $7 million and went and helped on the ground. Now there's a political agenda there, but AOC has talked at length on the House floor about that. You know, Jesus would have fed the poor and the hungry and given people shelter, honor thy neighbor, love thy neighbor, etc. It just doesn't really make sense. Tones84 in the comment here. She has a question. Do you believe religion should be taught in schools? It's on the screen there. So I think in the USA it's different. I think there should be separation again of religion and schools. But school prayer is such a massive thing in the USA, and states are won and lost based on your opinion on this. But I mean, you're there for a few years now. Like, it's part of the indoctrination process, behave and think a certain way. So do you think it should stay or not?
See, that's an interesting question. When I see, do you believe religion should be taught in schools? What religion? I mean, there's thousands of religions to choose from. I mean, you could, have a Muslim class and a Catholic class and to cater for everybody in the school. But I mean, you could have a specific school for something, but what religion is my question to that. There isn't just one religion. Do you think religion should be taught in school? There could be a class that talks about all the religions, like let's talk about them all. Let's go through them all. Let's go through all the denominations of specific religions. Fine, absolutely. But I don't think one should be given priority over all the others.
And again, we have an example of Ireland here, because all of our schools were owned by religious institutions up until very recently. The vast majority are still owned by the church. You had to follow the ethos of that school, which is whichever religious branch that was.
And I was very religious, I have to say.
But the issue with that is it leads to a damaged society, because it's been controlled so much. You're being controlled what you do at the weekend. You're being controlled what your body does. Your education then is controlled as well. And if you're only focusing on one viewpoint, then there's no autonomous learning. There's no autonomous thought. There's no critical thinking. There's none of that. And I think education as a whole suffers.
Yeah, and your education, in its essence, is to question and to ask. And I always it was a fact that I was encouraged not to ask in religion. It was like, whenever I had a question, okay, well, if this is, if Adam and Eve were the only man and woman, then, how did Cain and Abel have children? Don't ask these questions. It was like, don't ask. It was like, how am I supposed to learn if I don't ask? And it was very much encouraged not to question and not to be too curious. And to be curious was to be like being bad. You're being a sinner. Stop questioning. Just have faith. And education and not questioning don't go hand in hand. They just don't. They're, you have to question in order to learn. So that, to me, they're very different.
I agree. So we're gonna completely shift topic now, because I'm always curious about what people miss most about home. So, obviously you haven't been able to come home in a while, so what do you miss most? I mean, there's a few things there's lists out there of the key things that people miss, but what are you missing most? I'm sure family is probably top of that list.
Okay. No, honestly, I always say that Ireland in the summer is the absolute most beautiful place on earth. If it could stay like that all year round, that's what I miss. I miss just overgrown ditches and fields with weeds and barley and just being on the farm and just, this is going to sound odd to Americans, but hanging out with the sheep and the cows and just being in Ireland.
Yeah.
That's Ireland to me. The smell of cow shite emanating through the air, it's just
slurry indeed. Yeah, picking strawberries and fruit, blackberries in the fields, and
simple, but that's what I really miss. Just that, like, my very last moment in Ireland was, I was supposed to go home last year, and of course I couldn't. But before that was 2017. And just right before I got the car to go to the airport, I just took a walk on my own over like an old bridge, road this thick with grass in the middle. Like, that's perfect Ireland to me. And that's what I miss, that small.
So my content where I'm just driving the back roads of Leinster, must be driving you crazy.
No, I'm in the passenger seat there with you.
And we're only 2 weeks away from everything sprouting, so the trees will be green as well. And I'm gonna post. I was up the top of a hill there earlier on today, and it's just somebody described it as like one of those stitch blanket things. What are the cross stitch blankets or patchwork blankets? With the fields, you know what I mean? Because obviously in the USA everything is so big. A field might be 40 acres, rather than here it's 4 acres, that kind of thing. So I can imagine that. What about foods?
I was going to say that, you can really get anything now that you want here. There's a lot of, especially where I am, there's a lot of like stores that'll sell Irish goods, and even the corporate supermarkets now have Irish stuff in their ethnic aisle. There's an Irish section. You get the Maltesers and your whatever you want. So don't really miss, but of course my mother like insists every time she comes over she has to like bring something, so you have to make up something that you pretend you can't get over here, like, oh yeah, we can't get Barry's tea, which is a lie. The local supermarket does Barry's tea.
So that makes sense, because when I lived in the States you could get anything you want, and in fact some places would charge you a fortune for it, but like you could get it no bother.
That's better now, yeah.
But the biggest thing that I didn't like when I was in the USA and what I missed most about home and initially was the milk. So the milk is disgusting in the US. Yeah. It's absolutely vile in comparison. Please agree.
They're allowed to put so much shite into the milk here. I mean, I have several relations who are dairy farmers, and they're not allowed to put half the stuff into the milk in Ireland that they are over here. It's just,
it's not even the cow. They put it on the grass and then they put it into the cow, and the cow eats the grass, and then the pasteurization process is pretty dodgy as well.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because I became allergic to dairy in America. So I don't drink I now drink oat milk, because I grew up on a farm, never had a problem in my life, and then got really sick while I was here. Went to the doctor, got my allergies done. They said, you're highly allergic to dairy. You can't have cheese.
Did you say oat milk?
Oat milk, yeah. It's milk.
You mean oat sweat? It's sweat. Oh. It's not milk. It's oat sweat.
I can't drink cow milk. What am I going to do? So yeah, it's just, I've been allergic now for years. I've had to replace all my dairy products with oat or coconut milk or coconut cheese or whatever, but never had that problem growing up my entire life. Just got like really, really sick here.
And in terms then, okay, so you got really sick there, because I want to do something funnier in a second, but so in terms of healthcare, were you covered over there? Did you have health insurance compared to say Ireland? Pretty expensive business. It
is. If you don't have healthcare over here, you're basically screwed. So thankfully I didn't have to deal with that. But I mean, when you look at the original bill, I mean, they can literally charge whatever the hell they want to. They can charge by hospital or by doctor what they're going to, just make up a number. So that was really an eye-opener. And it's still so crazy to me that people think, I mean, I often say just affordable healthcare, because saying free healthcare to people is, it's like, just try and gently push it to them as affordable healthcare even, and they still won't even think.
What's funny is it's the same process. So like you pay your premium into a big fund to an insurance company, and they take a slice off that. But everybody's just paying into a big fund, and then if you need it, you pull from that fund.
Yeah.
Now, how is that any different from taxation? You pay into a big fund and you take from it, except the insurance company is not taking a slice of it. So it doesn't really make much sense to me. to be honest. Do you miss the accents of home? Actually, I just
so it's funny you should say that, because when I first made my first few TikToks, I was, and any Americans, I love you. And it sounds like we're probably just complaining about American things here, but my accent had changed listening to the video of myself. I just went, what the hell was that? And
oh, really?
I was going into Americanisms a lot more than I think that really caused me to sort of like, whoa, is this what other people hear? I love the American accent, but it's just like, we've always had this thing growing up, you know, somebody goes off to Australia for the summer, they come back and suddenly they're like, oh, good day, mate.
Good
like,
eye. Oh, yeah.
You know, and I didn't want to be that person who was like, oh, she's American now, you know? So,
the reason why I'm asking is because I'm going to play a clip here. You probably, I haven't told Tracy any of what I'm playing, so this is another video of yours. I think this is the one here.
I just want to say.
No, I'm not doing that one yet. It's this one here. You ready? Okay.
Hi, I'm auditioning for the role of Rosemary. Anthony, there's that thing that Thomas thought of.
Could you try that again, only more Irish this time?
I'm actually Irish. I'm from Ireland.
That's nice. More Irish.
Anthony, there's the thing that Thomas thought of.
Try dropping your H's after your T's this time.
Anthony, there's the thing that Thomas thought of when he was 33.
And now say top of the morning to ya.
Nobody says that.
Actually, never mind. Just go on to the next line.
Ah, Seamus, I think those potatoes do be needing more Guinness on them.
Really? You know what? You're right. You're just not Irish enough for the role. Oh, imagine Keira Knightley.
She's English.
And Ryan Reynolds is the male lead. Oh,
Isn't he American?
he's Canadian.
It's a whole other country.
That's, I just find that brilliant because
really specific to Irish people to get that humor in that one.
But like lots of Irish people know straight away what, you know, the frustration with that. And the Wild Mountains poem is set in Ireland, and Christopher Walken is in it, and he's an old Irish farmer, and Emily Blunt, etc. And when that trailer for that ad came out, people were like, sorry, what? Are there no Irish actors available? You know, what's going on? But the reason why I'm asking why I asked about you about the accents is because I'm about to play another clip now, and it'll put this in context, I think. This is not your video, but you'll understand when you see it. Yeah.
Want to get Capone? Here's how you get him. He pulls a knife, you pull a gun. He sends one of yours to the hospital, you send one of his to the morgue. That's the Chicago way. And that's how you get Capone.
Tell me you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it. Say you like my hat.
You're not wearing a hat.
Say it.
Yeah, it's a wild Irish dog.
A what?
And stand still.
Okay.
Close. Like one person. And if we separate, he'll feel threatened and attack our vital parts.
What?
We're gonna fall. Look what you've done.
What I've done?
You couldn't just wait for the cows.
You couldn't just help me?
It's gonna cost at least 200 to tow her out. It's not gonna come out of my pocket. It's coming out of yours.
See what you bought, how you saw it. Now look, I've helped as much as I'm gonna help. You still got a car. I suggest you use it for you're not welcome anymore.
I think
you should fuck off now, but you still got the legs to carry you.
Don't tell me you're angry with me.
No, I'm through with you.
Well, you're quicker than most fellas. Generally, they wait till afterwards.
Oh, they called you Liam, didn't I? Jimmy Dove. Much more lyrical than Liam McGivney. Much less Irish. Listen to me, Liam McGivney. I've come to bring you a gift.
What gift is that, Garrity?
It's the gift of pain, of course.
What goes on in this town is none of your business.
As long as I'm living here, it is.
Then maybe you shouldn't be living here!
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
So those are some examples of some really dodgy Irish. I think the most famous is Tom Cruise in Far and Away. I think it's
Pierce Brosnan's Irish, but like one of the only Irish people there was Alison Doody speaking to Pierce Brosnan, the blonde woman there at the end.
Yeah, and she had a British accent. Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah. That was but I have an agent over here, and I go on auditions, and I get it so much. Oh, you're not Irish enough. You're not Irish enough. I'm like, this is how, I'm sorry I don't have red hair, freckles, and green eyes, and a shamrock hanging out of my ear, but like, that's not, as most people in Ireland look like me. Like it's just crazy though.
But it's the whole industry there, and like St. Patrick's Day is coming up, and it's it's all about corned beef and cabbage and green beer and all of this kind of stuff, and it's cringeworthy. And like in Ireland, we don't really celebrate it as much, but we know how to make money off it, I guess, for tourism purposes and stuff.
I have a video. I'll probably put it out today. I have it in my drafts, all about St. Patrick's and how we celebrated it growing up. And yeah, you're right. It was a religious holiday for us, really. You went to mass, you wore your shamrock, watched the parade on television. And it was really, actually, in my research, I found out that it was really only started in America by Irish soldiers over here, pre-Revolutionary War, that they wanted to remember their Irish heritage. So they had a parade and really took off. And I suppose in Ireland then we saw, this is good money, you can sell green beer. And so it sort of came from America back to Ireland then. The commercial sort of, not a religious holiday, but more Irish pride type thing.
It's a bit like for St. Patrick's Day, it's a bit like Halloween. On Samhain would have been the ancient custom in Ireland, and that was morphed in. The church hijacked it, turned it into Halloween, and then it's taken off in the USA in particular. And it's the same for St. Patrick's Day, a religious holiday here, and then a celebration of all things Irish, and most of them are, you'd see the 4-leaf clover instead of the shamrock, and and you're like, okay, not that. But like that you mentioned there at one point in that video, top of the morning. Like even now, I'm sure everybody still says.
I've actually never heard any Irish person say that. Have you?
Never in my life, never once has anybody ever said top of the morning to me.
And if they did, you'd be like, what the hell is wrong with that?
Your man is some dickhead. He said top of the morning to me. What the hell is wrong with him? He must be.
I'm curious as to who came up with that. Did somebody come up with it for a filler? Like, where does that come from? Top of the morning to you, like. Yeah,
and it's not even of. It's O with the apostrophe. To the diddly I. And I think was it. It was in The Quiet Man a couple of times with John Wayne. Yeah, I think he said it a couple of times, and it's just okay. Of course, because there's nothing more Irish than John Wayne, and But so I have a couple of more things here I want to ask you, because obviously Donald Trump and the election is over. Obviously it was a bit of a shit show. Like Boston and that area is primarily Democrat, so that's a good thing. But there's obviously Trump supporters everywhere. So like how are you during all of that, chaos?
Yeah, I mean, there was lines drawn, there was I've seen families torn apart, not speaking to each other anymore. Firsthand, I've seen that. One of my friends was dating a fella who voted for Trump, and that caused it's just, but yeah, it's a very much a Democrat or very open-minded, liberal, progressive area where I'm in, but you still get people who, I don't know, it's this notion of they're entitled to something more just because of where they were born and that kind of thing. And I said in one of my comments recently, equality isn't pie. Equality is not something that you run out of. It's there for everyone.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't get that. I mean, it was a great celebration here, when Trump lost, obviously. It was just, people were, we're all on lockdown still, but the people were hollering in the streets and just screaming out loud.
But does it not scare you that if it wasn't for the coronavirus, Donald Trump would be president again?
Yeah, not scares me. I feel like I've reached a certain level of, and it's an awful thing to say, but like, not apathy, but just sort of like nothing surprises me anymore. Do you know what I mean?
You're numb to it as well at this point.
Yeah, that's a good. Yeah, it's just like people were, I remember people saying, "Oh, Donald Trump will never win" back in 2016, and I said, "He will. He will. I don't want him to win, but I can see it's going to happen. It's absolutely going to happen." And yeah, I don't know. I think something like died in all of us over the past 4 years. It was just a sense of, well, we could never do this. We could never do that. We're more advanced. We could never vote this man into office. And it was just kind of like, oh, this can happen.
And now we're seeing this new word, Trumpism, where, CPAC, he gave this speech and afterwards it's Trumpism. So Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Matt Gaetz, etc. They're all very much trumpets, so he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And 74, he got 5 million votes more this time around. But the thing in the USA, it's so partisan that nobody's allowed have a different opinion, and nobody's allowed question you. So I'm going to play your other clip here. And just because you do kind of a bit of a skit on it. So
I just want to say, no matter who you voted for, we can all be friends. If I vote for you to be deported, we can still be friends. If I vote that you need to die while giving birth, we can still be friends. If I vote that you can't marry your partner because you're both men, we can still be friends. Boom, I solved racism.
And that's kind of, this, I think that was post January 6th, wasn't it? I think you're frozen. Maybe it's me. Is it me? I think Tracy's gone for a second. She might just refresh. It reminds me of families torn between in Ireland years ago. God forbid we wouldn't be Fianna Fáil in my grandparents' family. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that as well. That scenario, and looking at the images of that day. I'll carry on until she comes back in. This is what we were looking at. These are the instances at the Capitol building, and this is what Tracy was referring to. You can't do all of these things and expect to still be friends, and no matter how often you say you want to still be friends. So it really is quite disappointing. Hopefully Tracy can come back in, but I think it's a really good chat there. And if you have any questions here, just put them in the comments there. We're in, again, these conversations with Paddy the Panda are very organic, so we kind of just go with the flow and we see where the conversation goes. And I didn't know a whole lot about Tracy before this call, so it's great. I'm learning with you guys as well. So if you have any questions for her when she comes back in, let us know, or just for me as well. That's fine as well. No problem whatsoever. Certainly when I was in Boston, because I lived in Boston as well for 3 years, and I was shocked by the partisanship. It was, you're either red or you're blue, and if you were anything in between, you were ignored. And just like religion, it's kind of a culture of fear mongering. You vote for us or else. So it's really disappointing that happens. Tracy, you're back. Excellent.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened, but I was just showing. I'll show them again.
I saw the clip of like, I'm all up in your face.
Yeah, but I was just so these are the scenes that we saw on January 6th, and this one for me is probably one of the worst ones. The Confederate flag in the Capitol building. But this so your video was obviously inspired by some of these events, you know. You can't try to overthrow the government and then say, oh well, we can still be friends without there being some sort of repercussions or accountability. And it's frustrating from my point of view that there doesn't seem to be any accountability as yet. You know, it's a slow process, but you know, we saw Republicans immediately, you know, not the diehard Trumpets, but others would be, oh, it's just politics. Don't worry about it. Like, let's go for coffee and get our nails done. And kind of, so no, you just represented some of the most heinous aspects of in history. You know, for people across the entire historical period from your Jesus to now, we can't just, you know, talk about the Kardashians.
That video in particular was inspired by two main things. One, it was inspired by another TikTok video I saw of a girl with a Southern accent saying, you know, why can't we all be friends? So that's why the Southern accent. But also, just one thing I didn't mention is I did actually cut ties with someone who was a good friend of mine because he just continued to vote for Trump. And I said, look, you can't vote against my best interests. You can't vote against my good friends' best interests, you know, my LGBTQIA friends' best interests. You can't vote against my Hispanic friends and then say we're just not, like, I don't wish it any ill, but we're not going to be grabbing coffee again together anytime soon. It's as simple as that. Like, it's not any animosity on my part, but like, how am I supposed to, I'm not that good an actress that I can sit there and pretend I'm okay with that, you know?
And there does seem to be a disconnect between policy and personality. So whereas Democrats typically are like, okay, well, the policies that they stand for are X, Y, and Z, and they're pro, you know, DACA, and they're pro healthcare for all, or, you know, debt forgiveness, etc. Whereas for Trump, it's okay, we're pro his personality. And that's it. You know, there's no policy. They never talk about policy. And I remember that the RNC, when they were launching his campaign, were like, we're not running on any agenda. We're just running on his personality. And that's shocking. That's 1930s Germany. That's 1930s Spain, Portugal, and Italy as well. You know, the rise of fascism. You know, and I don't think Americans understand that right-wing nationalism is fascism. You know?
Right. Yeah. I know it's thrown around so much now. Oh, Trump Nazi. But honestly, I remember watching the whole process of him starting his speeches in like 2015 or whenever he said he was running, and I just remember going, "Holy crap! This is exactly like the footage I've watched of like Hitler. It's exactly that impassioned speech to crowds. They were really going for this, you know, back then, this sense of nationalism, pride of the country. We're the #1 country in the world, and I'm going to give it back to you. And here's the people who are doing it to you, and we're going to take it back from them." And I was just like, am I the only one seeing this? And of course, everybody saw it, and it suddenly, you know, it was all anybody was talking about. But like, I think sometimes it's been said so much that people think we're just trying to be dramatic or just throwing it out there. Oh, Hitler, Nazis. Oh, they call us Nazis. Like, no, it's literally so similar. You've no idea.
It's you create the problem. You tell everyone that you're the only person with the solution to that problem. You tell them that you have to be religious, but only a particular religion. And anybody who threatens those, you know, family ideals, is the enemy of the people. So, first of all, I'm really sorry that you lost a friendship over that. And people like Wendy is in the comments here. I gave up friendship I had for over 30 years because of Trump. Yeah. You know, and it can really do that. Does it remind you of, because it reminds me, the toxicity lately kind of reminds me of that kind of sectarianism in Northern Ireland for a long time, you know, between the different organizations up there, even the IRA and the UVF and Unionists versus Nationalists. It kind of, that vitriol, that kind of hatred, you know, and you're blinded by that hate, even though you really have a lot more in common than you think. You know, does it remind you of that?
There is an element of that. But yeah, that's you know, that's the whole thing, and I really do try to emphasize that point, that this isn't about me hating you because you voted for Trump. This is me really disappointed, really hurt, really just at a loss as to how you could actually not care about other people. And, you know, especially in the case of my friend, it was like, it hurts. I told him that, as I said, it hurts to hang out with you. It physically hurts because I can't believe that you think that way. And you genuinely, you know, the funny thing, one of the funniest things he said to me was that he doesn't want immigrants coming in and taking his job. Paddy, he's an immigrant. And I said that to him. I said, you're an immigrant. He goes, yeah, but I'm here already. And I'm like, well, you're an immigrant and you don't want immigrants coming in and taking your job. Like, how do you make that make sense?
And the ridiculous nature is, you know, that the immigrants that are coming into the USA, they don't get those jobs because they can't, because they're, you know, they don't have social security numbers. They have to pick fruit and they have to clean and they have to work back of house, you know, in restaurants and stuff like that. They're not coming to take your job. They're doing the jobs that you would never do in a million years.
Yeah.
I want to, and I guess there's a segue then into, you know, them not caring about people. I can't really trust anybody who is so flippant about 550,000 people dying and tens of millions of people getting COVID. And I'm a COVID survivor. I had it myself in January. There's some people in the comments here who've had COVID as well and have long-standing kind of issues now because of it. You know, issues with lungs and liver and bowels and brain fog. But in Ireland, there's an issue as well now. People are pushing back against the lockdown. I do have a clip, and I just want to play it here so that we can just get a bit of context as well.
Shame on you! Shame on you! Shame on you!
What are you gonna do? Give me that voice? No, it's because of
betrayers. Fucking whole lot, you betrayers. Scum. You're worse than the English. Betrayers. Scum. Had me hands up and I'm being dragged out of the crowd.
So that was last weekend in Dublin. There was another protest today in Cork. Very few people showed up for it, but that was last weekend. And it was ambushed by, again, a far right group called the National Party. You know, these groups kind of show up every now and again, and they fired some fireworks at the Gardaí, and that's why they were attacked. But did you notice anything about the protesters there? They were all males. They were all of a certain age demographic as well. Even the hand signals, the language that they were using, you're not nationalist enough, you're worse than the British, etc. That's the same as the USA. That's the same as those people who are anti-mask, anti-vaccine over there. And so there are cohorts everywhere. But did you hear about this, and were you kind of...
Yeah, actually, my mother's a mad one for the memes. She sent me a meme about it this morning. But yeah, I mean, I think these things don't happen in a vacuum. You know, once things get really nationalistic in one country, it sort of, people see this happening on the news and it starts, you know, riling up. Same thing in other countries. And yeah, there is something about the young white male. I mean, God, we could spend hours talking about this, but you know, there's a level of anger there, of not having the life that their father had, where you show up, you get a job, you're in that job for the rest of your life, and that's it. You know, it's like, where's you know, where is this for me, almost? And this anger and frustration at life in general, where they want to lash out at somebody and to blame somebody. And yeah, it's nuanced. I don't know how to exactly get into it. Maybe I'll do a few videos on it or something. But
do you think it's like an identity crisis, you know, because, you know, the role that males play in society is very different today than what our parents were?
you know, even on the videos that I posted, my main detractors were young white males, were people telling me I didn't know what I was talking about. And absolutely, you know, there's a lot happened in the past few years. I mean, there's been Me Too, there's been BLM. I'm not saying these things didn't always exist, but they've really come out of, people are having to wake up and listen to other people who are not like them and share space with them. And yeah, it's an identity crisis. It's like, well, where do I stand in all this? I always thought this was my role.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a more open, a more inclusive, a more equal society benefits everybody. I mean, that's common sense. I mean, a less patriarchal society benefits men. It's not all this, men have to support women, men have to make big money, I mean, it supports men to say that you don't have to be the breadwinners, you don't have to keep all your emotions inside, you don't have to not talk about your mental health. You know, we want men to be able to feel like equals, you know, not some superior big being that has to carry women around on their, you know, and all the weight of the world on their shoulders. Just be human, you know, and can we all just be the same? And so, yeah, I mean, you probably talk about it better than me being a white male, but like there is this, I think, yeah, an identity crisis of like, where do we fit in this world?
Like I think there has, like, so I think I'm different insofar as I have an awareness of the spectrum of society. So when you're aware of that, you know, it really doesn't matter where you fit in, because nobody fits in. And once you kind of get your head around that, all that matters is you're a good person. You do the next best thing, and you try not to be an asshole. You know, that's life is really that simple when you need it, when you want it to be. These guys really do feel like they're oppressed. They really do feel that, you know, their privilege has been taken from them, where previous generations had it in their droves. And you see, it's not just Ireland. Obviously, the UK has it. You know, Austria's got a big kind of right-wing problem. Poland is crazy at the moment with it. And obviously the USA, and it's always men who attack me in my comments, and they've always got a truck, and they've always got sunglasses.
Oppression to the oppressor. That's one of the best comments I've ever heard. Equality feels like oppression to the oppressor. When you've always had things on your side, having to share it with other people, them getting a say, it suddenly feels like you're being oppressed. Oh, I can't do this now. Oh, I can't do that now. It's, yeah.
Rebecca, who listens every week, fair play. A rising tide raises all boats. JFK, great, big fan of JFK, I have to say. But yeah, I agree with that, and I agree with you on almost everything. It's almost like we're twins. It's ridiculous, Tracy.
We are cyborgs. We are related.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'll finish up with just kind of just a random question. So because, you know, we're going for about an hour and 10 minutes, and I really appreciate
Somebody asked, did I wear the paddy cap because of, and yes, I did. I wore it.
Yeah, of course, because it's my trademark, you know. Yeah, and you look great on it. Fair play. Yeah, it's fantastic. Although I did do a video, and it's like, based on what I look like, what kind of job would you give me? And I was wearing a paddy cap. And I'd say 90% of people were like, you know, fishmonger, or because they saw the cap, not the person. And that kind of, you know, that's unconscious bias at play as well. But so my question for you then is just very generic question. If you were having a dinner party and you could invite 3 people to eat your dinner with, I know people hate these questions. I don't care. Who would those 3 people be? Dead or alive? It doesn't. It's memorable. Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean,
and let me know in the comments who you would bring along as well.
Yes, please give me ideas here. God, there's 3, only 3. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, obviously you're from a big family, so you're not used to sitting down with just 3 people. I get that, but I'll give you maybe Ruth Bader Ginsburg might be one.
Yeah, but I'm thinking of somebody. The first thing that came to my head was the Obamas, to be quite honest. That's just, but I can't just pick. I couldn't just have, Barack and not have Michelle there. That wouldn't be good for me. I want to have both of them. So that's 2 of my 3 people already gone.
You see, I've already met Barack, so like, yeah, indeed, in 2011. So
dropping.
yeah. So you know what I mean. He doesn't follow me on TikTok though.
I call him Barry, but whatever. You know, I mean.
Rebecca says RBG as well.
Yeah.
And Tones, and they're all going to follow you now as well. So that's great. So the Obamas, okay, so I'll increase it then to 5 people. 2 of them are Obamas. So that's 3 more.
Jeez. This is a tough one, Paddy.
This is really not a tough question at all. Like,
it's the reducing it down factor for me because there's so many people, you know. I mean, from so many different backgrounds. I mean, I'd love to sit down and talk with some horrible people through history as well, like, you know, Mussolini and there's some really good people. Like,
and in fairness, could you imagine Obama and Mussolini at the same table? That'd be
a movie, Tea with Mussolini or Dinner with Mussolini.
That is class. Somebody said Robin Williams. That'd be a great one as well.
Yeah, Anne Frank would be a great one to talk to. I mean, God. Yeah.
Michael D. Higgins. You can always bring Miguel D. Oh, you're not a fan of Miguel D? Okay.
No. It's just if I had to have 5. No, he's you know, I don't want to. Sorry, Michael D. I mean, that's the thing, you know. Probably, you know, if I could bring my grandmothers back or something, that'd be actually pretty awesome as well.
That's the classic Irish thing. Like, it's, you always come back to family, you know. You always come back to family. I'd probably, Michael Collins, I'd bring him along, because I have a right chat with Michael about that stuff. And you know, I'm showing my history buff, like with Constant Markovich.
Yeah.
You know, like Rupert Ginsburg is great, you know, but I'm a big fan.
It's also can be Anthony over here. Nobody really knows of Countess Markovich at all.
Yeah, yes. Mary Robinson was a hero of mine when I was a kid. I met her as well. I was a Boy Scout, and she came and said hello. You know, so I was thinking about presidents because I met Michael D. Higgins as well. I had dinner up there in the Ars, because I was involved in drama and stuff in my local town. So, okay, so somebody else is saying Gene Kelly, Freddie Mercury, Albert Einstein, Frankie Sinatra.
Grace Kelly. Just somebody said Gene Kelly. That reminded me of Grace Kelly as well.
Grace Kelly, yeah.
Albert Einstein, sure, yeah. Definitely.
So it's interesting. See, what will happen now is you'll, in 2 hours' time, you'll be like doing whatever, and you'll be like, of course, these are the people, and you'll drop me a message and we'll follow up. But we'll leave it there, I guess. Folks, thank you very much for joining us today. There was quite a few of us watching, so that's really good. And Tracy, just do your little outro there. Just let people know what your handles are, and you know what your content is and how people can find you.
Yeah, I'm on TikTok at Not The Real Tracy Delaney, because so many people are the real somebody, whatever. And mostly politics, social issues, and recently religion, I guess. Yeah, just a little bit of everything.
Fantastic. And as people know, I'm Paddy the Panda, and I'm Paddy the Panda on most things. And if you're watching on YouTube, all of my handles are there. And just a reminder to folks that every day this month, I'm doing 10,000 steps for the Irish Kidney Association. The links are in my bios across all platforms. If you can donate, that's great. Or just follow me, give me a bit of motivation. That'd be great, because just after having COVID, I have a dodgy hip. I'm 800 years old, and I can only go within 3 miles of my house. So, yeah. So follow that. And somebody said Martin Luther King, like, you know.
I did think of him, but then, there's so many. I could have Marie Antoinette, Frida Kahlo. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. That was probably the worst question I've ever asked on one of these. Don't worry, it's a learning process. Tracy, thanks so much for being on. I appreciate it. Don't go anywhere yet, because when I end, I'll just say thanks afterwards. But again, thanks everyone for joining. And if you haven't been able to watch this, it's available on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts. And Slán Bhaile. So see you later.